looking down the road, just like I always do.
Well, good morning, Matrix. Welcome to the channel. Thanks for stopping by if you're new here, and thanks for returning if you've been here before. My name is Philip, and I run this channel, The Inner Road. It's a small channel, and I get on my bike, I talk a little bit about stuff I know, stuff I think I know. I'm a research psychologist, as I've talked about in previous episodes. I study existential well-being, meaning in life, how human beings deal with mortality and other issues. Just filling you in if you haven't been here before. Today is a personal one. I hope you might not mind too much. I needed to get on the bike this morning, this beautiful, crisp autumn morning in Charlottesville, Virginia. I've talked before in some episodes about how, for me, it's a real thing, two-wheel therapy. But today I really needed it, not just in a general sort of stress relief sort of way. In a few hours from now, I'll be in a courtroom. Again, I said it's a little bit of a personal story today, although I'm going to try and not get too deep into that issue, but just something related, I think. Hopefully you'll appreciate the conversation. So I'll be in a courtroom in a few hours. That'll be the fourth time in my life I've been in a courtroom, and those 4 times have all been in the past 3 or 4 months. I am a witness in a civil hearing. Basically, someone I care about had one of the worst days of their life, and that has generated these proceedings that are custody related, and it's unpleasant for them, for me, all parties involved. And like I said, I can't get to details about it, don't want to, but basically it generates a question in me that I ask sometimes, which is, how did I get here? And, I've talked a little bit in a previous episode about my psychological theory, my model of mortality awareness and meaning in life. And part of that model is embedded in that model is the notion that we should be asking ourselves that question from time to time. Where am I? Is this where I want to be? How did I get here? What choices, what decisions did I make? What random forces, if there are some that we can determine, that may have played a role, but also not undercutting the fact that we do make choices and decisions in life that lead to outcomes, some better than others. And that got me thinking about these moments in life that we have where we make decisions, we actually choose a path. And we sometimes probably don't pay enough attention to how important those moments are in determining the new course that our life is going to take. Sometimes they're subtle. Sometimes it parallels the course it might have taken if you had made a different choice. Other times it branches off in a completely different direction. And I want to tell you a little story about one of those. It's one of the only ones I ever really think about in my life without regret. I don't regret this moment or this decision in my life. It's just the one that I think back on occasion, and I kind of do this sliding doors moment. I don't know if you know that phrase, sliding doors or moment. It comes from a film, 1998, with Gwyneth Paltrow, about a woman getting on an underground tube, a subway train in London, and basically sliding doors. In one part of the film, she makes it onto the train right before the doors slide shut, and in another sort of version of her life, she misses. The sliding doors close before she can get on the train, and we see the two different paths that her life kind of took based on just that moment, this making or not making the sliding doors of the train. And that now sometimes is referred to as sliding door moments. And sometimes they're small, and sometimes they're random, and other times they're big, and sometimes we choose and make decisions. And this is one that I want to talk about with mine, because it's kind of a fun one to think about. It doesn't haunt me, but I often do think, wow, I would not be having to go to court today if I had made a different decision on that day many, many, many years ago. So I grew up at 6, 7, 8 years old begging my parents to let me stay up to watch Saturday Night Live. This was the original crew, started in 75. I was born in 69, and they would let me. Now, sometimes I would stay up. I could only stay awake for half of it. Sometimes I would actually manage to stay awake for all of it. But I was a huge fan of John Belushi. My God. In fact, so much so that my mother found something from when I was in 4th grade, So when you're in 4th grade, you're what, 8, 9, 10 years old? Somewhere like that, maybe 9. And in 4th grade, they had us write sort of a personal yearbook. I can't remember what it was called, but it was just sort of like, tell us about who you are at 9 years old. And in that, I wrote, when I grow up, I want to be a comedian, and my favorite comedian is John Belushi. So I loved Saturday Night Live. I loved everything that, as I grew older, I learned a lot more about all of this sort of the paths that people take to Saturday Night Live. John Belushi, Chevy Chase, all these folks, Bill Murray, right? And a lot of them went through this thing in Chicago, where I grew up, called Second City, the Second City. It's an improv group. You've probably heard of it, some of you, I'm sure. And some of the most famous sort of comedians and performers that we know from, the 70s on, I think 70s and late 60s on went through there. So when I was in college, I was an actor, a performer. I was had a radio, TV, film degree in communications, but I was a minor in theater. I was doing a lot of comedy. I was a part of an improv group. I was doing stand-up comedy both at the college and in Philadelphia, which was about an hour or so away from the college. So I was doing everything I could to fulfill that lifelong dream. And when I graduated college, I moved to Chicago, back where I kind of grew up, and started, moved to this little community, this little neighborhood called Andersonville. I had a friend from college who had graduated a year before me, pursuing acting, was living there, roommates kind of thing. And one of the first things I did, boldly young sort of, guy, just arrived in Chicago, no real great credits or anything, just some silly little state school and some performances in Philadelphia. I took the train. I took the Chicago transit system down to Second City, and I walked in on a daytime afternoon, and found my way to the office of Joyce Sloan. Now, Joyce Sloan she's passed now, she's dead, unfortunately. She is a legendary founder, creator, executive, producer, sort of Second City, and with Bernie Salins, I believe is the name of the other gentleman. And they're responsible for some of the most famous people that we know, having found and hired them to perform in Second City. And I walked into her office, and she was there with her assistant, a young guy, and I walked in. I said, hi, Miss Sloan, my name is Philip. I'm just out of college, a performer, comedian, actor. I have my headshot and my resume here. I'd like to just drop this off on your desk and let you know if you ever have auditions, I'd love to come in and perform for you. And she said, great, thanks. She put it down. I put it on her desk, and I walked out, and that was that. And nothing, of course, happened for a very long time. I just was doing what you do as a struggling actor, comedian. I was waiting tables, I was bartending, and this went on for maybe 9, 10 months, 11 months, and I just was getting really tired, and just realizing that this is, and I realized people put in a lot longer. They put in their dues, and you fight and you claw, and I just kind of hit a wall. I just got exhausted. I've been working in restaurants, I started washing dishes in restaurants when I was too young to work, like illegally, for cash, and then, all my life. And I was just tired of it. I was tired of, I would try to get auditions, I couldn't even get them, and then even if I did, it never really went all that well. I probably wasn't as good as I thought I was. And So that was that. I started leveraging my actual degree, which was in communications, radio, TV, film. I had a connection that I could pursue based on one of my professors at my college. So I pursued that opportunity, and it turns out that it led to an offer to have a job at a brand new morning television show in Chicago as a writer and producer, for me, having basically earned cash every week, as a waiter and bartender, it was like a decent salary, like a yearly salary with benefits, and it was really quite new for me. And I thought, yeah, this is what I want to do. This is what I'm going to do. And seriously, this is what happened. About a week after I accepted the offer, hadn't started yet because the show was literally starting from scratch, so there was a bit of a delay. It wasn't like the show was up and running already. I was at my apartment in Andersonville, in Chicago, and the phone rang. A landline, that's all we had back then. And I pick it up, and I hear on the other end, is this Philip? And I said, yeah. And it says, this is, I don't know, Adam. I don't know what his name is. This is Adam from Joyce Sloan's office at Second City, and Joyce would like to invite you in for an audition. And this is a moment that it's so funny, I don't remember stuff from last week, but I remember this so clearly. I heard what he said. Joyce Sloan wants to invite you in for an audition. And I calmly said, no thank you. And there was, as you might imagine, a pause on the other end of the phone. This Adam doesn't have, I'm pretty confident that Adam, on behalf of Joyce Sloan, doesn't hear, no thank you very often, would you like to come in to audition for Joyce Sloan? Especially from people who walked in maybe just short of a year before that and said, here's my resume, I'd love to audition for you. And he said, I'm sorry, what? And I said, no, that's very kind, thank you very much, but I'm not interested. And I basically hung up. And I went on, I got started working on the television show, and writing and producing. It was a local morning news show. And that started almost an 8-year career working in television. I eventually started doing that in Los Angeles, when I left Chicago. And I look back now and I think, my God, what could have happened that day if I still had the job offer. Why in the world? I was so confident in what I was and what I wanted to do at that moment. And here was this moment that dated back to 4th grade. Now look, I want to be very clear. I might not have been very good. I might have bombed that audition. And frankly, that in and of itself, a bombing of that audition might have completely and dramatically changed my life in a direction that I wouldn't have appreciated. I'm going to sit here and wait for a second. Okay, we're moving again. So I think it's important to note that, there's no, who knows what would have happened at that audition. I might have bombed it, and that could have potentially, in its own way, put me on a very different path in life, having failed so miserably at something I wanted to do. But, yeah, it's such an interesting moment, because I truly don't sit here today and regret it. I just think back I don't do a lot of counterfactual thinking, like, if only, I would have become famous. I do kind of, lament that. The only thing I kind of lament about it is that was at the era of Second City when the people there were Steve Carell, Stephen Colbert, and just a year or two or so later, Tina Fey, right? So there were some pretty amazing people working at Second City in Chicago at that time. And the thought that perhaps I wouldn't have bombed it and could have potentially started working with some of them, it's mind-boggling. And again, I was okay. I was pretty good at that for my little New Jersey college sort of. I have no idea what would have happened if I'd actually gone in. It's not really about that. It's not the if only or what if. It's about that moment. It's about the decision itself. I don't have regrets because my memory is I was incredibly confident with that decision, right? I made it. I had come to terms with this new choice that I was going to pursue this path and as a writer, producer in television. That was the goal. And I owned it. It just never crossed my mind that I was making the wrong decision there. And I think that's something that when my model and when my research talks about, hey, take stock every once in a while, ask yourself, am I living the life right? All right, so like Jason Isbell, the singer-songwriter, writes, are you living the life you chose, or are you living the life that chose you? Right? And every once in a while we need to do that. We need to ask ourselves, how did I get here? Talking Heads reference. Am I living the life that I chose? And as long as you feel like in your bones, in your gut, that yeah, this decision, this choice, this moment feels right. I get it. I understand why I'm making this decision. Then don't second guess yourself. That's my life advice. Again, you do you. But if you find yourself unsure, then maybe that's a time to kind of step back and go, okay, wait a second. This decision should be easier, should feel more comfortable than perhaps it's feeling right now. Maybe that's a sign that you need to kind of like take note of, and then work from there and figure out, like, think some things through. Talk to friends, talk to loved ones, right? You're not alone on this planet. You get to make some choices all yourself. You get to make choices all by yourself, but you also get to make choices with the people who care about you and who want the best for you. Ultimately, you are the person who gets the final say, but why not talk to some folks and see what they're feeling? That's just, again, my advice. You take it, you leave it, you do you. But at the end of the day, I just feel like I'm okay with the path I took. Hey, at that point in my life, I was a young guy. I was not necessarily making all the right choices. Who knows, man? Getting down that, let's say everything went really well. I mean, you want to do some counterfactuals. It's, for all I know, I would have made some really bad choices if I got, started getting some success in that kind of world. Not only would I not be going to court today, I might not even be alive on this planet right now. There's just no way of knowing or playing that game. I just think it kind of makes me chuckle that this moment in time that I thought would have been everything I ever wanted came, and I just confidently knew that it wasn't for me. Anyway, I hope today I hope you enjoyed the ride, the beautiful ride here in Charlottesville. I hope you didn't mind me sharing a little bit about my personal situation and a story from my past. Going to court today will be unpleasant. I hope it's the final version of that, and we all can just move on with our lives. That would be really great. Poor little animal. So listen, be good to yourself, be good to each other, ride your ride. If you do ride, be safe. Thank you once again for checking out my channel and for listening to me. I hope anything I said was meaningful or helpful for you, or at least distracting for a few minutes in this life that we all live here. Go out, live the life that you choose, not the one that's chosen for you.
So I'm curious, what are some of your sliding door moments in life? Do you have any that you think about? Put them in the comments below if you feel comfortable sharing. I'd love to see them, and I'm sure others would too.
I'll see you on the next one. Thanks for stopping by. By the way, have you noticed? I have new rear view mirrors. For those of you who watched the end of my last video, I had a scary moment on the road back from Dillwyn, Virginia, where my bar-in mirror flew off at 65 miles an hour, and I had to go chase it down. I don't like riding without them, so I finally put on some new ones. They're third party, but they're working. How about that? All right, back to your life.